Good morning, folks. Welcome to the Rangers Reviews morning briefing on Friday, the 12th of August. I'm Joshua Barry, joined just by Derek Clark today. I said it's Friday, it's Thursday, isn't it?
You're wishing the day away already. You got me excited there.
I'm thinking I'm going to Ibrox tonight. It's Thursday, the 12th of August, and we're here to talk continued reaction to the midweek games, among some other topics. So, Derek, how are you this morning, mate? Recovered from Tuesday?
Yeah. I think it's subsided a little bit now. I think we're in the stage of just trying to divulge what went on and move on and look ahead to Friday, of course, which is a huge game now. Almost must win. You would say. I mean, it's must win anyway when it comes to Rangers, but certainly the magnitude of it is intensified now.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's first talk, Derek, about the reaction to Tuesday, because obviously it was we spoke yesterday and it was only 12 hours after the game had finished. I think everyone from the Rangers support was naturally very disappointed with the result. Everyone that was covering the game was probably a bit shocked at just how it happened. What have you made of the reaction to the result and to getting knocked out of the Champions League?
Yeah, it's pretty much what you would expect. I think a lot of anger, especially you see that on social media. I think that's understandable. I wouldn't say it's an overreaction, because I think to be in that stage of play at half-time, to lose 2-0 in the second half to 10 men, I think you should expect anger. The manager said that as well in his post-match comments. He says that there's going to be a lot of noise coming their way, and that's understandable. So I think that's part of the course when it comes to Rangers. Everyone wanted to see the club qualify for the Champions League, but they've just fell short. That not many of us would have expected Rangers to fall short of the first hurdle, but they have done, and they just need to move on from that. They've got a huge game. Gerrard said that in his post-match as well, that they need to pick themselves up, not just for Dunfermline, but a huge Europa League playoff round coming their way next week. So they need to be fully concentrated on that and put the Malmo result behind them. It's gone now. There's no point feeling sorry for themselves. They have to get their heads focused on the next game, which is Dunfermline. And it's a huge game because, of course, the cup competitions is an area where the manager himself has says that their form in that has not been good enough in the last couple of years. So it's important to get out of that slump in form by Friday night.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a statistical match report on the site today looking back at the game, and I think personally, just reflecting on it, from being there and watching it, I think the most disappointing thing is in that 46 to 60 minute period, Rangers only had one shot, and I think throughout the tie, Malmo were ruthless. They didn't have tons of chances, but when they had them, they took them, creating those two opportunities from throw-ins instead of trying to recycle possession, hold the ball, relieve pressure and play for penalties. That was ruthless, and I don't think Rangers were. And Malmo also had more possession in that 15-minute period. So I think that's the thing that people will look back on and think, that's when we needed to go and pressurise them, as Malmo did to us at halftime in the home leg, when they needed to go out really and win at home because they wanted to take a lead away from home. And they were able to score twice in quick succession. So I think looking back on it, that's definitely the area of the game that was most disappointing. I think as well what's interesting is the reaction to the squads, because obviously 10 days ago there was huge goodwill, towards everything, huge anticipation for this season. It's difficult to not lose that after getting knocked out of the Champions League, Derek. But I think do you think it's important that still retained because of the anticipation that was there, as I say, 10 days ago?
Yeah, but it's a difficult one because it's still raw at the moment. Folk are still angry and getting over the fact they've been knocked out of the Champions League. But listen, if they make it into the Europa League group stages, that's a level that Rangers are at the moment. It's important to get in there. I remember back in the 97-98 season when they get pumped by IFK Gothenburg, and then a week or two later they get beat off Strasbourg in the UEFA Cup in the sort of parachute competition they went into. So you don't want to be doing that. You want to be fully focused on getting back into that Europa League. And of course, Gerrard's record overall in qualifiers is second to none. Malmo, of course, the exception. They just came up short. They're just not good enough to compete at that level. I've got an article on the website actually this morning just talking about the defensive record and how it has to be better if they want to compete at the top level in European football. So that's something you'll have to address going into the Europa League playoff round. But certainly that feel-good factor that we started the season with, of course, after that victory against Real Madrid and, of course, beating Livingston in that first game of the season, that has eroded a little bit. There's no doubt about it. But it's all about getting back on the horse now. Rangers generally have reacted to adversity pretty well under Gerrard, but they've not lost matches in a row. So this is a real tester of character to come back against a Dunfermline side, first of all, who will have nothing to lose when they come to Ibrox. It's one of those no-win situations. You're expected to win, and if you win, nobody cares. Just move on to the next game.
That is someone tweeted me last night with a Richard Gough quote, and it's something like the famous one: "Playing for Rangers is much easier when you're winning," and that's the truth, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
It is. You know, it is much easier. And a lot of people get in touch to say that they think we'll bounce back soon and get a result tomorrow night. I mean, the other disappointing thing from Friday, Derek, was from Tuesday, was the atmosphere was incredible. I think it's the loudest. I think it's the loudest I've ever heard in the stadium for that opening 35 minutes, and the scenes after or the opening goal were quite fantastic. And it's such a shame. I mean, you wrote a lot in the build up to it about reflecting on famous European nights, how this could be another one. And the thing is, you see, until 35 minutes, it really was. So it's a shame that won't be remembered, especially with the first full capacity stadium. I think in Scotland it would have been since lockdown.
Yeah, it is. I was thinking that myself yesterday, that it's not going to be remembered up there along the likes of Parma and Leeds United and Dynamo Kiev and all that sort of stuff, because ultimately the outcome wasn't a positive one. But you're right. Just watching on the television, you could feel the atmosphere coming across. Sat in my living room, it looked absolutely rocking, especially like you say, the first 35 minutes. And when Morelos opened the scoring as well, the place was rocking. But it's just unfortunate that for one reason or another, the players sort of stopped after that. They weren't as intense as what they were, and sort of relayed onto the supporters as well. They certainly turned up. Steven Gerrard asked them to be the 12th man, of course, and they certainly delivered that. Unfortunately, the performance on the park just couldn't rise to the occasion. Yeah. But I mean, it's great to see the fans back in, the full houses back as well. It was fantastic to see after so long. Of course, Bayer Leverkusen was the last time, 18 months ago. It seems like a lifetime ago. So it was fantastic to see. I mean, looking at Twitter and stuff like that, the supporters still love being in the ground back amongst their friends and all that, and in a packed Ibrox, how it should be on European nights. So that's, I guess, one slight positive to see the fans back in the ground again.
We'll move on to looking at the squad, Derek. There's a few comments speaking about should people be dropped? Do people need a break? Probably getting in touch to ask about Goldson, Barisic and Kent in particular. I think this is an interesting one, because I think when you've seen Rangers go through these tricky runs under Gerrard before, he hasn't had the squad depth to bring people in. And I don't think it's a bad thing. Sometimes players do probably need a little bit of a game off to kind of recalibrate before they go again. So I think that, having players like Patterson, having players like Hadji, Kamara will come back in on tomorrow. Having a real good squad depth, this is ultimately surely when you should use it, because players will go through bad runs of form, regardless of if they're playing in front of fans, if they're not, regardless of if they're having a good season, regardless if they're not. So for me, I know the temptation of a lot. I've seen a lot of people say, let's keep the same 11 or relatively same 11. I'd want to play an equally strong 11, but I would want to maybe put in a few players who haven't had a chance yet this season. I definitely have Helander in there, and freshen up that way. I mean, what do you think Steven Gerrard will do tomorrow in terms of his squad selection?
Yeah, I'm not too sure, to be honest with you. For me, if I was a manager, I would be making 6 or 7 changes just based on the performance the other night. And you mentioned the likes of the Goldson, Barisic and Kent. I see Paulie Walnuts isn't getting touched there. I wouldn't play them all. I think they should all be replaced for the game against Dunfermline, just based on the recent performances. But I'm not too sure if the manager will do that. I think he's got his tried and tested players. I think it's a huge game, as we touched on. He'll be trusting those players to get the job done and get them through the round. I'm not too sure if he maybe thinks it's unfair to stick a Stephen Kelly in there or someone like that. I know he said that for the European games, but I would love to see him get the nod in there. He really impressed during pre-season. Like Calvin Bassey, I'd like to see come back in. I'd like to see Nathan Patterson play. Like you say, Hollander coming back in as well. Those players should be good enough to beat Dunfermline at the end of the day. Rangers have got a really strong squad, despite recent results. Of course, Glenn Kamara comes back into the reckoning. Kemar Roof as well, which has been a big miss. So he does have decisions to make, Steven Gerrard. I don't think if he makes wholesale changes, it's going to necessarily weaken the side somewhat, because I do think there is so much quality in there. But I'm not too sure how many changes he's going to go for after his post-match comments. I think maybe just 2 or 3 perhaps changes to this game. Who knows? But I think around 6 or 7 players wouldn't have too much to complain about if they find themselves on the bench or in the stand on Friday night.
Great, yeah. Well, we'll move on to speak about Connor Goldson before we go through some comments. I know you're got something coming out about him in the next couple of days, Derek. So he spoke after the game saying the support was unbelievable. We sent them home disappointed, and we're disappointed for that. With that, we said before the game we had a massive chance of making this a memorable night, and we failed to capitalise on it. It's our fault, the people on the pitch, no one else. We can't blame management or tactics. It was a game in our own hands, and we threw it away. Goldson hasn't had a great start to the season. I know there's been a lot of focus on him because of the contract talk going on. I mean, what have you made of the whole situation, Derek, and what needs to happen in your mind soon?
Well, he doesn't look the same player as he did last season. Now, I know he played every game last season. He was an ever-present, but this contract situation is rumbling away in the background. He said himself he's left it to his agent so he doesn't get distracted by it. It looks to me as if he is getting distracted by it. And it looks to be having an impact on his performance. He doesn't look the same player. I think it needs resolved one way or another. Even if he comes out and says, "Listen, I want to leave at the end of my contract," so that Rangers supporters know what the situation is, and they can't level that at him. Oh, he's been affected by his contract situation. Yeah. So I think it's important to get this resolved sharpish, because it's been lingering all summer. I think it's having an impact on the team. He may argue otherwise, but performances, looking at his performance with your own eyes, he's certainly not at the level he was last season. So I think for the good of the team, it's important it gets resolved. Not too sure what stage we're at with that, but like many, I think it would be fantastic if he signs a new deal and commits his long-term future to the football club. But if not, then it's important that Rangers supporters know either way what he plans to do, because the longer it goes on, I just feel it's going to hinder his performance more and more.
Absolutely. Got a couple of interesting comments here. We'll go first with one from Billy. Scott Wright is a good player. He's not going to take us to this next level. He goes on. Hadji, Roof, and possibly Sakala should all be ahead of him. That start was maybe Scott Wright's third start in a Rangers top, maybe. Yeah. I don't think he had a great game. I'd agree with Billy that playing a Roof or a Hadji or Sakala would have made sense. What I'd probably say is obviously Roof wasn't there. Sakala, we've not seen him play off either side of the flank, and probably arguably maybe doesn't know his defensive responsibilities as much yet. That's not based on anything, but just guessing, trying to think why Gerrard put Wright in there, and Hadji probably wasn't fully fit. Scott Wright has, in my mind, done really well when he's been given an opportunity in a Rangers shirt. I think there's a wider issue which we wrote about on the site last week. It was Adam Thornton done an excellent piece on the success of the relationships down the left side of the pitch, and perhaps a lack of contingency down the right. I thought that was quite evident in midweek, Derek. whether it be Scott Wright or when Hadji came on, there wasn't too much of an idea how to progress the ball down the right. And I think that's why you've seen so many crosses eventually go into the box from Tav.
Yeah, you're right. I don't think Scott Wright had his best of games on Tuesday night, but I don't think that he's deserving of people just saying that he's not good enough, because he has started the season particularly well for me. I like Scott Wright. I think he's a good player. I know that Billy said that Hadji, Roof and possibly Sakala should be ahead of him. I agree with you. I think Sakala needs still some time to integrate into this side and to understand the way that Steven Gerrard wants to play, but he's another one that's not really had enough time to show what he can do properly. Roof, we've seen just flashes this season because of course, his suspension. And Hadji, like you say, not fit enough. I felt he really tried his hardest to make a contribution on Tuesday night. It'd have been fantastic to see him on the park for longer, but I'm not too sure if that was possible based on his level of fitness. But he's one of the players that I'd be hoping to see on Friday night from the start, if possible, because I think Rangers have missed that invention and creativity in and around the final third. So, but yeah, this is what I mean about supporters being angry. It's still raw at the moment, and they're writing players off already. I think it's too early to do that. The manager said himself, we're two games into one competition, two competitions still to go. I think we're still early on in the campaign. It's not throw the baby out of the bathwater and all that sort of stuff. So let's just trust that hope that the players can get back and get out of this slump that they're in.
And just finally, very briefly, do you think the fact that a lot of our top players missed pre-season has impacted the start of our season from James? I would say just quickly, Derek, that I think that has a little bit. I think that's something that's kind of out with the club's control because of international commitments and quarantining, all these different things that exist in the world we live in at the moment. But I do think that I do think that has impacted us, and I do think that once we get our Roofs and everyone back in the first team, and everyone back with a few games under the belt, I think you'll start to see the squad depth, because I don't think we've had a game yet where we've had everyone available and etc. and so on. I don't know if you'd share that opinion. Yeah,
I certainly do. And I mean, Clive Tilsley mentioned during a pre-season game. John Lundstrom mentioned as well after, I think, the Dundee United game that COVID has impacted the pre-season as well. So I don't think that's helped. I think it's been a bit stop-start. And like you say, players coming back, like Morelos coming back from the Copa America quite late on and not being available for that first leg against Malmo. We've had the suspensions of Roof and Kamara. We've had players like Aribo not being available and what have you for a bit of time. So I certainly think it's not been the most ideal pre-season preparation. Yeah. But there's no point feeling sorry for yourself. The season's kicked off. It's time to knuckle down and start getting results now. And that's what it's like at Rangers. 3 defeats on the bounce. They wouldn't tolerate a fourth. So tomorrow is absolutely massive.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for your time, Derek, and thanks for joining us, folks. You can keep up to date with us on our socials. There's plenty of good content out in the Rangers Review as usual today. And remember, you can subscribe to the Rangers Review now for just £1 a month for the first 6 months, less than a paper a day for top quality journalism, supporting the club you love. And we will be back tomorrow morning with a bigger preview of the Dunfermline game. And you can keep up to date with us on our socials, as I say, until then. So thanks very much.